I'm going to firstly sew the body to the head, and for this you just want to make sure that the final round of the body is lined up with the second to last round of the head, so that the 12 single crochets of the body line up with the 12 single crochets of the head. I'm just going to use a whip stitch when I sew the body to the head. And other than that, you can use pins to keep it in place if you want, but I'm not going to do that because both parts are quite heavy, so sometimes pins don't really work, they just kind of fall out. So I'm just going to kind of do this freehand, and I'll show you when I've nearly finished sewing the body to the head and how I finish it off. I'm nearly finished sewing the body to the head, so I'm just going to do the final whip stitch here. So depending on what kind of size of hook you used and what weight of yarn you used, you may be fine just sewing it around once, but for me, I'm finding this is a bit too wobbly for my liking. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go round again and just sew the body to the head for one more round, and I may pick stitches from the second to last round from the body to sew to the head this time, just so that it's not so narrow at the neck part here. It's completely up to you how you want to sew it, but I just thought I'd show you how I'm doing it now, so that if you want to have a similar effect to what I'm getting here, then you can just copy what I'm doing too. So yeah, I'm just going to keep going around like this, picking slightly lower stitches from the body and just whip stitching all the way around, trying to make it a bit more stable. So I'm just going to meet you when I finish doing that. I've just finished sewing around for the second time, and now you can see that the head is a lot more stable. There's still a little bit of movement there, but you know, that's to be expected for something that's quite big and heavy like this. So now that I've finished with that, all I'm going to do is, as I usually do, just feed the yarn through to a stitch at the back here, pull through, and then cut as close as I can. And there we go. So now we've got the head and the body connected. I think the next thing I'm going to do is to sew the arms down, so I'll show you that. So as you can see, I've pinned down the arms now, so you should basically just sew them in the space between where the head meets the body. I'm going to use a whip stitch again, but you can use whatever method you want, and I will show you when I finish that. Just finished sewing the arms down, and as I mentioned, I just did a whip stitch all the way along, and then I did a couple of whip stitches either side just to secure it down a little bit more. So I'm quite happy with how those arms looks. If you want to keep them flat to the body, you could do some extra stitches at the bottom here, but I don't really care about that, so I'm just going to leave it like this. And I've just done my usual feeding it through to the back of the body, and I'm just going to cut those yarn tails now. So now I'm going to move on to sewing the legs down. I've just finished sewing one of the legs down just to show you. So how I would suggest that you place this is, sorry the camera angle is a bit difficult here, but basically just make sure that you start sewing the leg down on round 2 of the bottom of the body here, so about here. So I'm going to place the next leg here, so there's like just that small gap between the two, and then I used a whip stitch again, but you can use whatever stitch you feel most comfortable with, and I just sewed round once. I didn't need to go twice on the leg, so I'll show you once I've done the other leg as well. As you can see, I've now sewn down the other leg, and again I've just done same thing as always, fed the tail through to the back. I'm just gonna snip that. So now we're nearly done with the sewing. We just need to sew the tail onto the back of KK Slider now. So let's do that now. For the tail, I'd recommend that the bottom of the tail kind of ends at round 6. So I've just put a pin in round 6 to remind me where I kind of want the bottom of the tail to sit, but you can pin it down if you want to. Again, I sometimes I do pin down parts, and sometimes I just prefer to kind of do it freehand. But yeah, I'm just going to sew that down now, again using a whip stitch as I've already shown you, and I will show you when that's complete. I finished sewing down all the parts, and I just wanted to show you what KK Slide is looking like now. So that's from the front, from the side, and then from the back. So all that remains to do for the body itself is just to add some black lines to the feet and the arms. So I'm just going to show you how I do that now. And then we're going to move on to making the guitar, which is an optional step you could just finish once you've added the lines to the arms and the legs. So I've got a short length of black aran yarn here. You can use DK, or you could even use embroidery thread for this if you prefer. I'm just going to show you how to do the lines on one of the arms, and then you can do the same thing on the other arm and pretty much the same thing on the legs as well. So I'm going to start by feeding the black yarn through the back of the arm towards the end of the arm here to a stitch kind of on the right hand side of the first row, like this, and I'm going to leave a small tail at the end there, and I'm just going to go a few rounds up, so perhaps 3 rounds, select a stitch, and then come back out at another stitch near round 1 of the arm, but on the left hand side. So just going to pull that, and then I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side, and I'm going to make sure that the yarn goes through to the back of the arm again when I'm finished here. Okay, so now that I've done that, we've got the black yarn tails at the back here. To make it a bit more secure, you might want to feed the yarn through again to another point at the back of the arm, so perhaps up here. And then you might want to do the same thing with the small tail you left at the beginning. And then you can just cut as close as possible to the arm. And then you're not really going to see this because it's facing the body anyway, but if you want to, you can kind of push your needle in and try and cover up those black parts with stuffing where possible, but yeah, like I say, you won't really see that anyway. So then that's it. So you've got your 2 lines now on the arm, and you can just do the same thing on the other arm and same kind of thing on the leg. So I'll see you when you finish that. So as you can see, I've finished adding the lines to the hands and the feet. So you, like I say, you could finish at this point, so you know that's a complete KK Slider doll. So yeah, if you don't want to make the guitar, you can stop now and just yeah, stop at this point. But I'm now going to show you how I make the guitar, and I'm going to make it out of felt, but you can use any other method that you prefer. I just couldn't find a way to crochet it that looked quite right, so yeah, I'm just going to show you how I make that out of felt now. So I've got my light brown felt here, and I'm going to cut out a kind of 8 shape, kind of, you know how a guitar looks like, just look at a picture of a guitar and try and cut something out that roughly looks like that shape. So I'm just going to start that off now. Like that. And then all you need to do is just use this shape and cut around it again once more, so you have 2 of these, and then we're going to sew them together. So I've now got my two guitar pieces, and to be honest, what happened is I tried to cut around this using this colour felt and I completely messed it up, and I actually ran out of this colour, so I had to use a different colour for the back of the guitar. So yeah, that's why there's two different colours here. It's probably not what I would have picked, but I don't think it looks too bad. So that's what we've ended up with. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these two pieces together. So I've got my thread here. Again, I did want to use brown, but I ended up with a more orangey colour because I didn't have the right colour of that either. It's not going too well so far, is it? So the first thing I'm going to do, so I've obviously thread my needle here, and I've got a knot at the end here. So I'm just going to go through the light colour part first, so the top of the guitar, like that, and then we can hide that part in the guitar. And now I'm just going to sew all the way around, so I'm just going to go do fairly small stitches, but I do want to be able to see the stitches because I think that gives a kind of border effect that I quite like. So I'm going to do like a little stitch like that, and then I'm going to come back up through here like this. I'm going to do another one. Got a bit tangled up there. There we go. And I'm just going to keep doing that all the way around, but I'm going to probably stop at about this point because I do want to add some stuffing to this, so I will show you when I get to that point. So I've still got just a little gap left to sew up, and now I'm going to add some stuffing before I completely sew that up. Not going to add loads of stuffing, just a small amount. So in fact I think that's too much, so I'm just going to remove some of that. Cool, and now I'm just going to finish sewing that up. So I finished sewing all the way around. I've made a little knot here. I'm just going to cut the tail, and there we have the main part of the guitar. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my dark brown felt, and I'm going to try and cut the sort of long part of the guitar out. I don't know what it's called, but you'll see what I mean when I show you this. So this is kind of the rough shape you're after. You just want to compare it to the body and think about whether it's maybe slightly too big, or if you need to make any adjustments to it. So I think it may be slightly too big. I'm just going to cut a little bit off that. And then just going to trim it down a little bit more. Okay, I think I'm happy with that, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is just to glue this. The next thing I'm going to do is just grab a piece of cardboard. I'm just using a bit of an Amazon box here. I'm just going to cut around this long piece of the guitar, and we're going to use this bit of cardboard to kind of reinforce this part of the guitar, because otherwise it will just flop around. So I'm just going to do that and then show you when I'm finished. So I've got my cardboard piece here, and as you can see, when I put the dark brown piece on top of it, you can't see it. So you do just want to make sure that you cut it slightly smaller than the felt piece. So now that I've got that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create some grey lines to go on the guitar, this long part here. So I've got some grey felt, and you just want to make sure that your strip kind of is the same width roughly as the dark brown long piece here. And then I'm just going to cut 5 small lines out of this. So I'm just literally going to go, maybe hold it this way will be better. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we'll eventually glue these down like this onto the this piece of the guitar. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut out the final few pieces. So I'm going to grab my reddish brown felt, which I ended up using for the back of the guitar here, and I'm just going to cut a circle out of this. So I went ahead and cut the circle out of the reddish brown felt, and then I've also cut the final few pieces because they're not too complicated. So I've done another black circle that's just slightly smaller, so it should fit sort of inside this circle like this. Then I've cut a small black rectangle, and then I have cut a small piece of the aran yarn that we used to make the KK slider. So I'm just going to show you how this all fits together. So you will end up putting these circles here. This part will go about here, and then this part will go here. The cardboard will be glued to the back of this, and there will be these grey pieces glued onto here. So I'm going to show you kind of how the order of assembling things now, because there is a particular way of doing it that I think makes most sense. So I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing to do is just to prepare your individual pieces and glue them together. So I've glued the smaller black circle to the larger reddish brown circle. I've glued the grey stripes to the long brown part, and then I've also glued this white bit of yarn to the black rectangle. The next thing you want to do is to glue the circle down to the right hand side of the guitar, and then you just want to glue the long part directly next to it. So I've obviously only put glue on this portion here. There's nothing here at the moment, but we will eventually put the cardboard here to kind of reinforce that part. But the first thing you want to do before you whack the cardboard onto the back of this is you want to start creating the strings for the guitar. So to do that, I've got some grey thread, and I've made a knot in the end of it, and I've got quite a long piece of thread, so I'd recommend cutting more than you potentially think you need. And I'm going to make 4 strings, so I'm going to do that by going in the back of this long piece here. Be quite careful when you're doing this, and just coming out through the final grey stripe like that. And then I'm just going to estimate where I think the black rectangle part's going to go. So I'm just going to, yeah, probably around here. So I'm then going to imagine that that's going to be there, and I'm going to go through roughly here to the back. I'm just going to pull gently. Oh, and make sure that this part doesn't get twisted. So I'm just gonna, cool. Don't pull too tight, you want it to be fairly loose. So that's the first string, and then I'm gonna go back up here, come out about this point. Getting caught on all my little pieces, sorry. Like that, and then I'm gonna go in next to this one. So we've got 2 strings now, and I'm just going to do that twice more and then show you when I've finished. So as you can see, we've now got the 4 strings, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut at the back here, leaving a bit of a tail, and when we glue down the cardboard part to the back of this, it's going to kind of secure that in place, so I'm not going to bother doing any knots or anything like that. So that's that. Just be careful with that part at the moment until you glue the cardboard part on. Don't try and move that too much. So yeah, now we will actually move on to just gluing that cardboard part down. Then we just need to glue this part here, and then we're ready to attach it to KK Slider. So you just want to compare the cardboard part to the felt part, and you maybe want to trim this down a bit because we don't really want to be sticking the cardboard to the main part of the guitar as well. So I'm just going to cut a little bit of that cardboard off. And now that looks about right. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue that down. Dropped it. Press down quite firmly. And there you go, that should now be a lot more secure. Finally, just going to glue this black part down. And I'd give that maybe 5 minutes to dry, and then we can move on to just attaching that to the KK Slider, and then we're done. So all I've done is I've just taken a piece of brown yarn, and I've just put it round KK Slider's neck, and I'm just cut it to a length that I'm happy with. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue this to the back of the guitar like this, so it'll end up sitting around his neck like that. It's kind of hard for me to show you on camera, so I'll just show you when I've done that, but I'm literally just going to glue it to the back here. So I finished gluing the strings to the back of the guitar, so I'll just show you that. It's not the neatest thing in the world, but it keeps it in place and no one's going to see that part, so I don't really care. So that is the completed KK Slider, so I'll give you a slightly better view of that in a second. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.